I am Olivia Burke, a 32-year-old woman living in Charlotte. I never thought a simple phone call could shatter my entire life, but that is exactly what happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I was driving up the mountain to check on my grandparents' old house in Asheville. They had both passed away a year ago, and I was handling the renovations. Then my phone rang. It was Tom, my contractor. I expected him to ask about paint colors or floorboards. Instead, his voice was shaking. He sounded terrified. "Miss Burke," he said, "you need to get up here, and you need to bring your family. We found something behind a false wall in the loft." My heart stopped. Grandma had always kept that loft locked tight. She told us never to go up there. Tom told me they found a hidden digital safe. And the most chilling part, it didn't have a brand name on it. It had my sister Amara's name engraved right on the metal top. I stared at the road, unable to breathe. I knew right then that this wasn't a treasure. It was a bomb. And it was about to blow my family apart. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? I am Olivia Burke, a 32-year-old. I stood on the porch of the old A-frame house, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The mountain air in Asheville is usually crisp and clean, the kind of air that makes you want to fill your lungs and relax. But today, it felt thin. It felt suffocating. I gripped the wooden railing, feeling the rough, peeling paint under my palm. I stared down the winding gravel driveway, waiting. I had called them all. I didn't give them a choice. I told my mother, my father, and my sister Amara that it was a legal emergency regarding the estate. I lied, technically. But after what Tom had told me on the phone, it felt like an emergency. It felt like the ground was crumbling under my feet. Tom, my contractor, was sitting on a stack of lumber near the front door. He was a big guy, used to tearing down walls and hauling heavy beams. But right now, he looked small. He was smoking a cigarette, his hand shaking slightly as he brought it to his lips. He wouldn't meet my eyes, he just kept staring at his work boots. "You okay, Tom?" I asked, my voice sounding hollow in my own ears. "I don't like this, Miss Burke," he said quietly. "I've found things in walls before. Old newspapers, rats' nests, maybe a rusty coin or two. I never found anything like that box. It feels wrong. We'll figure it out," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. A car engine whined in the distance. I watched as my mother's silver sedan came around the bend. She drove too fast, kicking up dust. That was Mom. Sarah Burke. She was always in a hurry, always rushing to the next appointment, the next luncheon, the next appearance. She parked next to my truck and stepped out before the engine had even fully stopped cycling down. She was wearing a beige suit, immaculate as always. Her hair was sprayed into a perfect helmet of blonde. She looked at the house with a sneer. She hated this place. She said it was damp. She said it smelled like old people. "Olivia, honestly," she said, slamming her car door, "I have a book club meeting at 4 o'clock. This drive is 45 minutes each way. What is so important that it couldn't be an email?" "It's not an email, Mom," I said. I stayed on the porch looking down at her. "Just wait, Dad and Amara are coming." She sighed, a loud, theatrical sound, and checked her watch. "Your father is busy, Olivia. He has clients. You know how the market is right now. He can't just drop everything because the roof has a leak." "It's not the roof," I said again. 10 minutes later, my father arrived. Carl Burke. He drove a black SUV that cost more than my entire college education. It gleamed in the mountain sun, looking out of place against the rustic backdrop of the woods. He parked next to Mom, taking up 2 spots because he didn't want anyone to ding his doors. He stepped out, adjusting his sunglasses. He was wearing his weekend casual look, a polo shirt tucked into expensive khakis, a leather belt that matched his loafers. He looked like the picture of success. He looked like the man everyone trusted with their retirement funds. "Livy," he called out, using the childhood nickname I had asked him to stop using 10 years ago. "This better be good. I moved a meeting with the Davidsons for this. They have a portfolio worth $3 million, so this conversation is costing me money every minute I'm standing here." "Hello, Dad," I said. I didn't smile, I couldn't. Finally, Amara arrived. My little sister. Her car was a 10-year-old Honda with a dent in the rear bumper and a muffler that rattled like a calm filled with rocks. She parked tentatively at the edge of the driveway, as if she was afraid to take up space. When she got out, my heart broke a little. She looked exhausted. She was only 30, but she had deep lines around her mouth and dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing an oversized gray sweater that had seen better days and jeans that were fraying at the hem. She looked small, defeated. Life had been brutal to Amara. While I had a steady job, a condo, and a savings account, Amara seemed to be cursed. She worked 2 jobs, waitressing and data entry, but she was always broke. She had bad credit. She had debt collectors calling her. She had an ex-husband who had dragged her through the mud. "Hey," she said softly, hugging herself against the mountain chill. "Is everything okay? You sounded scary on the phone." "Come inside," I said. "All of you." We walked into the house. The main floor was empty, stripped down for the renovation. The air smelled of sawdust, varnish, and the musty, sweet scent of the old pine logs. It was a smell that usually brought back happy memories of summer vacations. Today, it just smelled like secrets. "Tom," I called out. "Up here," Tom's voice drifted down from the loft. My mother stopped at the foot of the stairs. She looked up, her nose wrinkling. "The loft?" she asked. "Olivia, nobody goes in the loft. Grandma kept it locked for 20 years, it's just full of insulation and spiders." I remembered that. Growing up, the loft was the forbidden zone. Grandma Gertrude was the sweetest woman alive. She baked us apple pies. She knit us scarves. She let us stay up late watching movies. But if we ever touched the handle of the loft door, she transformed. Her eyes would go hard. Her voice would get sharp. "Storage," she would snap. "Dangerous, heavy boxes. Floorboards are weak, do not go up there." We listened. We were good kids. We never questioned why a grandmother who doted on us would have a room she guarded like a fortress. "We're going up," I said. "Tom found something behind the wall." "Behind the wall?" Dad asked. He chuckled, a dismissive sound. "What, like a time capsule? Did she hide some old war bonds?" "Just come," I said. I led the way. The stairs creaked under our weight. Step by step, we ascended into the space that had been hidden from us for decades. The loft was a large, triangular room. The ceiling peaked high above us. There was a single round window at the far end, letting in a beam of dusty light. Tom was standing near the back wall. He had ripped away the old wood paneling to check for termite damage. Behind the paneling, the studs were exposed. And nestled between 2 studs, set into a custom-built frame, was a false wall. Tom had pried the false front open. Inside the cavity sat a box. It wasn't a cardboard box. It wasn't an old cookie tin. It was a matte black, heavy-duty digital safe. It looked modern. It looked expensive. It looked like something you would find in a bank, not in the attic of an elderly woman who collected ceramic cats. "What is that?" Mom asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. The casual annoyance was gone, replaced by a thick, heavy tension. "Tom found it an hour ago," I said. "Look closer." Dad stepped forward. He squinted at the box. He reached out a hand to touch it, but stopped inches away, as if he sensed the heat coming off it. "It's a biometric safe," he muttered. "Keypad entry, high security. Why on earth would Mother have this?" "Look at the top, Dad," I said. "Read the engraving." The light from the window hit the top of the metal box. The engraving was professional. It was etched deep into the steel, filled with silver paint so it would stand out against the black. "Amara," my sister let out a sharp gasp. She put her hand over her mouth. Her eyes went wide, darting from the box to me, then to Dad. "Me," she whispered. "Why? Why is my name on a safe in Grandma's attic?" "There's a date," I said, pointing. Under her name there were 2 dates. 2014, 2024, 2014, Amara said, her voice shaking. That's 10 years ago. That's the year I dropped out of grad school. That's the year everything started going wrong." "This is ridiculous," Dad said suddenly. His voice was too loud in the small space. He straightened up, adjusting his cuffs. "It's probably just sentimental. Maybe she started a savings bond for you, Amara, and wanted to surprise you. You know how she got at the end." Her mind was wandering. "She probably hid it and forgot the code." "She didn't forget," I said. I looked at my father. I looked at his perfect clothes and his confident jawline. "She built a false wall, Dad. She hid this behind paneling. You don't build a false wall for a savings bond. You build a false wall to hide something you never want found." "Well, let's just open it," Mom said nervously. She was twisting her wedding ring on her finger. "We can pry it open with a crowbar. Tom has tools, right?" "It's reinforced steel, Mrs. Burke," Tom said from the corner. "And it's bolted to the frame from the inside. If you try to pry it, you'll damage whatever is inside. And these digital ones, some of them have a failsafe. If you force them, they lock down permanently." The room fell silent. We stood there in a semicircle. Mom, Dad, Amara, and me. I looked at the box. It felt like it was humming. It felt like it was alive. Grandma didn't want this found while she was alive, I said slowly. But she wanted us to find it now. That's why she hired Tom. She put it in her will that the renovations had to start this year. She knew the paneling would come down. This is morbid, Dad snapped. I'm not standing here playing detective games with a dead woman's junk. I have to get back to the office. He turned to leave. No, I said. My voice was sharp. You aren't going anywhere. Excuse me, Dad looked at me, his eyes narrowing. He wasn't used to being told what to do, especially not by his daughters. It has Amara's name on it, I said. This is about family. We are opening it. Now, I stepped up to the keypad. The numbers glowed with a faint, ghostly green light. I stood directly in front of the black box. The keypad had numbers 0 through 9. It was simple, but the possibilities were endless. Does anyone know the code? I asked. How would we know the code? Mom snapped. She was pacing back and forth in the small space, her heels clicking on the plywood subfloor. She never told us she had a safe. She never told us anything. Think, I said. Grandma was sentimental. She wouldn't use a random number. She would use something that meant something to her. Try my birthday, Amara whispered. She was standing close to me now, drawn to the box like a moth to a flame. She looked terrified, but she couldn't look away. Okay, I said. June 12th, I reached out. My finger felt heavy. I pressed the buttons. 0612 the lock beeped. A harsh electronic tone. A small red light flashed once. Wrong, I said. Try Grandma's birthday, Mom said. March 15th. I typed it in. 0315, beep, red light. One more try, Tom warned from the corner. A lot of these lock out after 3 tries for an hour or worse. My hands were sweating. I wiped them on my jeans. Let me do it, Dad said, pushing forward. He used his shoulder to nudge me aside. You're going to mess it up. I know how she thought. She probably used the address of the first house we lived in. 402 Maple Street. He reached for the keypad. Stop, I yelled. I grabbed his wrist. He spun around, his face flushing red. Don't you grab me, Olivia. Don't you touch that keypad, I shot back. You don't know her. You think you do, but you don't. You stopped visiting her 5 years ago, Dad. You only came up here when you needed her to sign paperwork for the trust. He glared at me, but he pulled his hand back. Fine. You want to lock it forever. Go ahead, be my guest. I closed my eyes. I tried to block out the sound of Mom's pacing and Dad's heavy breathing. I tried to picture Grandma. I saw her in her kitchen. I saw her kneading dough. I saw her looking at the photo album she kept on the coffee table. It was the album of her wedding. She always said her life didn't really begin until she met Grandpa. She said he saved her. She said their anniversary was the only day that mattered. June 4th, 1965. I know what it is, I said softly. What? Amara asked. Her wedding anniversary, I said. It has to be. I took a deep breath. I stared at the green numbers. This was it, the final try. I pressed the buttons slowly, deliberately. 060465. I held my breath. Click. The sound was loud in the quiet loft. It was the sound of a heavy mechanical latch sliding back. The door of the safe popped open about an inch. You got it, Amara breathed. I hooked my finger around the edge of the door and pulled. The hinges were smooth and silent. The door swung open. We all leaned in, our heads bumping together. The safe was mostly empty. There were no stacks of cash, no gold bars, no velvet bags of jewelry. Lying in the center of the metal floor was a single, thick manila envelope. It looked innocent. It looked like ordinary mail. But the way it sat there, isolated and protected by steel and codes, made it look dangerous. I reached in. My hand was trembling. I pulled the envelope out. It was heavy. It felt like it contained about 20 or 30 sheets of paper. On the front, written in Grandma's shaky handwriting, the writing she had in her final months when the cancer was making her weak, were 2 words. For Olivia for you? Mom asked, sounding offended. Why is it for you? Amara's name is on the box, but the letter is for you. I don't know, I said. I turned the envelope over. It was sealed with tape. I ripped the tape. The sound was like a tear in the fabric of the room. I reached inside and pulled out a stack of papers. On top was a handwritten letter on her favorite floral stationery. Read it, Dad said. His voice was tight. He was watching the papers with a hawk-like intensity. Read it out loud. Okay, I said. Everyone be quiet. I cleared my throat. I focused on the words, trying to keep my voice steady. My dearest Olivia, I read. If you are reading this, I am gone. And I am sorry. I am so sorry that I was too weak and too sick to fix this while I was still breathing. I have left this burden to you because you are the strong one. You are the only one who can stand up to him. I paused. I felt a chill run down my spine. Him, I continued reading. For the last 10 years, I have lived with a terrible secret. I have suspected and then confirmed that my son, your father, Carl, has been stealing. That is a lie, Dad shouted. He lunged forward. Give me that. I stepped back quickly, holding the letter to my chest. Stay back, Dad. I mean it. Amara stepped in front of me, blocking him. She was small, but she looked fierce. Let her read, Dad. Dad stopped. He was breathing hard, his face a mask of fury. She was on morphine, Olivia. She didn't know what she was writing. Let me finish, I yelled. I looked back at the letter. He is a financial advisor, Grandma wrote. People trust him, but I started noticing things years ago. I saw mail at my house for accounts I never opened. I saw statements for transfers I never authorized. When I asked him, he told me I was confused. He told me I was forgetting things. But I wasn't forgetting. I started keeping the mail. I started hiding it, and what I found broke my heart. Carl wasn't just stealing from his clients. He was stealing from the family, and to cover his tracks, he needed a scapegoat. He needed someone disposable. I felt sick. The bile rose in my throat. I looked at Amara. She was pale, her eyes wide with dread. He used Amara, I read. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. He opened accounts in Amara's name. He used her social security number. He forged her signature. He routed stolen money through shell companies that he registered to her. He destroyed her credit rating on purpose, Olivia. He kept her poor and desperate so that she wouldn't have the resources to fight back. He made sure she looked unstable so that if the police ever came, he could point the finger at his troubled daughter. No, Amara whispered. She grabbed the edge of a wooden stud to steady herself. No, that can't be real. I have proof, the letter went on. Inside this envelope are copies of the documents I could steal from his briefcase when he visited. But the real evidence is in the cloud. I hired a private investigator 3 months before I died. He helped me upload everything. I pulled another piece of paper from the envelope. It was a small index card. On it was a website URL, a username, and a long, complicated password. I looked up at my father. He wasn't shouting anymore. He was standing very still. His face had gone completely white. He looked like a statue. You did this, I said. My voice was barely a whisper, but in the silence of the loft, it sounded like a scream. You did this to her. It's a misunderstanding, Dad said. His voice was calm, eerily calm. It was his business voice. Complex tax structures, estate planning, minimizing liability. Mom didn't understand high finance. She misinterpreted data points. She said you forged her signature, I said. She said you ruined Amara's credit on purpose. Amara has always been irresponsible, Dad snapped, pointing a finger at my sister. Look at her. She can't hold a job. She's a mess. I tried to help her. You didn't help me, Amara said. Her voice was shaking, but she walked toward him. You handled my finances when I was 20. You told me to sign those papers. You said it was for a trust fund. You said it was to protect my future. She stopped inches from him. You stole my future, she said. My loans were denied. My car was repossessed. I couldn't get an apartment. I thought I was cursed, Dad. I thought I was stupid. But it was you. It was you the whole time. I did what I had to do for this family, Dad yelled. Do you know how much it costs to maintain our lifestyle, to pay for your mother's clubs, for your college, Olivia? I made sacrifices. You sacrificed me, Amara said. Tears were finally spilling over her cheeks. You fed me to the wolves so you could keep your country club membership. Mom was standing in the corner. She looked like she was in shock. She looked from Dad to Amara. Carl, she said weakly. Is it true? Did you use Amara's name? Sarah, shut up, Dad hissed at her. We are leaving. This is nonsense. We are going to court to get this will sealed. Olivia, give me that envelope. No, I said. I'm keeping this, and I'm logging into that cloud account. If you do that, Dad said, his voice dropping to a menacing growl, you will destroy this family. You will ruin everything I built. Think about your mother. Think about your inheritance. I looked at the black box. I looked at the name Amara engraved on it. I looked at my sister, broken and crying in her oversized sweater. You already destroyed this family, Dad, I said. We're just digging through the wreckage. I turned to Tom. Tom, escort him off the property. If he doesn't leave, call the sheriff. With pleasure, Tom said, stepping forward, his chest puffed out. Dad glared at us one last time. He looked like a cornered animal. Then he spun around and stormed down the stairs. We heard the front door slam so hard the whole house shook. I didn't stay at the A-frame. The air there felt poisoned. I told Amara to go to my house in Charlotte. I told her not to go back to her apartment. If Dad was desperate, I didn't know what he would do. I didn't want her to be alone. I drove my truck down the mountain. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers ached. I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see Dad's black SUV tailing me. But the road was empty. The drive was 2 hours. 2 hours of silence. 2 hours to think. I thought about every family dinner we'd had in the last 10 years. I thought about how Dad would sit at the head of the table, carving the turkey, asking Amara about her job search with a condescending smile. "Still working at the diner, kiddo?" he would ask. "Maybe if you learned to budget better, you wouldn't be so stressed." He would lecture her about financial responsibility. He would give her books on how to succeed. And all the while, he was using her name to launder millions of dollars. He was the reason she was failing, and he sat there and mocked her for it. It was a level of cruelty I couldn't wrap my head around. It was evil. When I finally got to my house, I locked the door. I bolted it. I closed all the blinds. Amara was sitting on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the wall. She looked catatonic. "I'm going to check the files," I told her gently. "You don't have to watch if you don't want to." "I want to know," she said. Her voice was flat. "I need to know exactly what he did." I sat at my dining table and opened my laptop. I typed in the URL from Grandma's index card. The screen was stark white with a simple login box. Username: Gertrude B. Truth. Password: My girls deserve better. 1965. My heart clenched at the password. Even in her digital afterlife, Grandma was trying to protect us. I hit enter. The screen loaded. A folder appeared. It was titled simply, The Evidence. I clicked it. The list of files was endless. There were hundreds of documents. PDFs, audio files, image scans. It was organized by year. 2014, 2015, 2016, all the way to 2024. I opened the folder marked 2018. I chose a file at random. It was a bank transfer authorization. It showed a transfer of $75,000 from the account of a Mrs. Lois Cole to a company called Blue Ridge Consultations. I scrolled down to the signature line. There, in black ink, was a signature. Amara Burke, CEO. "Amara," I said, "look at this." She leaned over my shoulder. She gasped. That looks like my signature, but it's not. Look at the B." I looped my B at the bottom. "This one is looped at the top." "He practiced," I said. "He got it close enough to pass a casual inspection by a bank teller who didn't care." I opened another file. This one was a tax return for Blue Ridge Consultations. It listed the company's address as a P.O. box in a town 3 hours away. It listed the sole officer as Amara Burke. And it listed the company's income as $450,000. He made almost $500,000 that year through this shell company, I said. "Amara, where were you working in 2018? "I was working at the bookstore," she said. "I was making $11 an hour. I couldn't afford to fix the heater in my car. I drove all winter with no heat." I felt a hot tear slide down my cheek. He was raking in $500,000 using her name, and he let her freeze in her car. "There's audio," I said. I saw a folder marked recordings. I clicked on a file labeled Dad Kitchen Argument NOV 2023. I turned up the volume. Grandma's voice filled the room. She sounded breathless, likely from the cancer, but her tone was sharp. "Carl, I found the statement. You can't lie to me. Who is Mrs. Whitaker? Why is her money in an account with Amara's social security number?" Then, Dad's voice. He sounded annoyed, like he was dealing with a petulant child. "Mom, drop it. You don't understand how these things work. It's temporary. I'm moving assets to protect them from tax liability." "You're stealing," Grandma's voice rose. "And you're framing your daughter. Does Amara know? Does she know she's the owner of this account?" There was a pause. A silence that lasted for 10 seconds. Then Dad spoke. His voice was cold, deadly. "If you tell her, Mom, if you breathe a word of this to anyone, I will stop paying for your treatments. I will pull the plug on your home care. You'll die in a state-run hospice facility with strangers changing your diapers." I slammed the laptop shut. I couldn't listen to any more. I felt like I was going to vomit. He threatened her. He threatened his own dying mother with a painful, lonely death if she exposed him. I looked at Amara. She wasn't crying anymore. She was sitting very still. Her face was hard, her eyes were dry. "He's a monster," she said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement of fact. "We have everything," I said. "We have the documents, we have the recordings, we have the motive." "It's not enough," Amara said. "What do you mean?" "It's a mountain of evidence." "It's evidence against Amara Burke," she said. "The signatures are mine, the accounts are mine, the audio. A good lawyer could say Grandma was coerced or confused. Dad could say he was just managing my accounts for me because I'm incompetent. He's been painting me as incompetent for 10 years, Olivia. He set the stage perfectly." She stood up. She walked to the window and looked out at the street. "If we go to the police now, there's a 50/50 chance I get arrested too. Accessory to fraud, money laundering, I could go to prison." "I won't let that happen," I said fiercely. "You can't stop it," she said. "Unless," she turned back to me, her eyes were dark. "Unless we get him to confess," she said, "to us, on tape today." "How? We trap him," she said. "We use his greed against him." The next morning, the sun came up, but the world felt darker than before. We had barely slept. We spent the night going through every file, building a timeline of the theft. It was over $5 million. $5 million stolen from retirees, widows, and vulnerable people. All funneled through Amara's name. We needed a plan. "We need to meet someone first," I said. "Mrs. Whitaker." She was mentioned in the files the most. "She lives here in Charlotte." I looked her up. "Why?" Amara asked. She was drinking black coffee, her hands steady now. The shock had burned away, leaving only a cold, hard anger. "Because I need to know he's guilty," I said. "I know the files say it. But I need to look a victim in the eye. I need to know that you never met her." We drove to Mrs. Whitaker's house. It was a small brick bungalow in a quiet neighborhood. The garden was overgrown. The paint was peeling. This was the home of a woman who had lost her savings. I knocked on the door. A frail woman opened it. She had white hair and kind eyes, but she looked worried. "Mrs. Whitaker?" I asked. "I'm Olivia Burke. This is my sister, Amara." Her face changed when she heard the name Burke. She recoiled, gripping the doorframe. "Burke," she said. "Are you related to Carl, the man who manages my money?" "We're his daughters," I said. "We're here to help you. Can we come in?" She hesitated, then nodded. We sat in her living room. It was filled with ceramic figurines and photos of grandchildren. "Mrs. Whitaker," I asked gently, "has my father. Has he been good to you?" She looked down at her hands. "He's very charming. He tells me not to worry, but my statements never come anymore. He says he switched them to digital to save trees. But when I ask for money for my grandson's tuition, he says the market is down. He says the funds are locked." I looked at Amara. She nodded. "Mrs. Whitaker," I said, "have you ever met my sister?" "Amara?" The old woman looked at Amara. She squinted. "No, I've never seen this young lady before in my life." "Did you ever authorize her to manage your account?" I asked. "Did you ever sign a paper giving Amara Burke power of attorney?" "Heavens no," Mrs. Whitaker said. "Why would I do that? I don't know her." I pulled out a file from my bag. It was a copy of a power of attorney document, signed by Evelyn Whitaker, granting full control to Amara Burke. "Is this your signature?" I asked. She put on her glasses. She looked at it for a long time. Then she looked up, tears filling her eyes. "No," she whispered. "That's not my writing. I never signed that." "Thank you," I said. "That's all we needed." We left the house. We sat in my truck in silence for a moment. "He's stealing from her right now," Amara said. "She can't pay for her grandson's college because he stole it." "We're going to end this," I said, "tonight." "How?" "We call him," I said. "We tell him we want a deal." "A deal?" "We tell him we found the hard drive. We tell him we know everything. And we tell him that for $2 million, we'll give him the drive and keep our mouths shut." Amara looked at me, shocked. "You want to blackmail him?" "No," I said. "I want to record him agreeing to it. If he agrees to buy our silence, he's admitting the guilt. He's admitting he knows the evidence is real. It's the final nail in the coffin." "He'll come after us," Amara said. "He's dangerous, Olivia. You heard the tape. He threatened Grandma." "Let him come," I said. "We'll be ready." We drove back to my place. I set up the living room. I put my phone hidden behind a picture frame, recording video. I put a second voice recorder under the sofa cushions. Then I dialed his number. "Hello," he answered on the first ring. He sounded tense. "Dad," I said. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you ungrateful girls," he spat. "We looked at the files, Dad," I said. "All of them, the shell companies, the forged signatures, Mrs. Whitaker." Silence on the line. "What do you want?" His voice was lower now, cautious. We want money, I said. You used Amara's name to make millions. She deserves her cut. She's broke, Dad. She wants a fresh start. You're trying to extortion me. He sounded almost impressed. Call it a settlement, I said. Bring $2 million. Cash or wire transfer. Tonight, my house. If you do, we give you the flash drive. We destroy the cloud password. You never hear from us again. And if I don't, then I email the files to the FBI tomorrow morning. He paused. I could hear him breathing. I could practically hear the gears turning in his head. He was calculating. He was weighing the cost. $2 million was cheaper than prison. I'll be there at 8 p.m., he said. He hung up. I looked at Amara. She was shaking, but her jaw was set. He's coming, I said. Good, she said. She stared at the empty chair where he would sit. I want to look him in the eye when he falls. After the call with my father, the adrenaline started to fade. In its place, a cold, hard fear settled into my stomach. I looked at Amara. She was sitting on my couch, staring at the phone like it was a snake that might bite her. He's coming, she whispered. He's really coming. We have to be ready, I said. But Amara, I've been thinking. If we just record him on my phone, is that enough? We aren't lawyers. What if the audio isn't clear? What if he claims we edited it? He has expensive lawyers. He could twist this around. Amara looked at me, panic rising in her eyes. You said the plan would work. It will work, I said. But we need backup. We need someone who knows exactly how to nail him. We need a witness who isn't us. I remembered a name from the files we found in the cloud. Lois Cole. She was Grandma's oldest friend and a former colleague. There was a note in Grandma's handwriting next to her name. Lois knows. She's the only one I trust. We need to see Lois Cole, I said. Right now. Before tonight. We drove to Lois's house. It was a small, neat cottage on the other side of town. Lois was 75, a sharp woman with steel gray hair and eyes that didn't miss a thing. When she opened the door and saw us, she didn't look surprised. She looked relieved. Come in, girls, she said. I've been wondering when you would find the box. We sat in her living room. It smelled of lavender and old paper. I told her everything. I told her about the safe, the letter, the forged documents, and the trap we had just set for our father. Lois listened, nodding slowly. When I finished, she let out a long sigh. Your grandmother was a brave woman, Lois said. But she was terrified. She came to me 2 years ago. She showed me the papers. She saw the transfers. Why didn't she go to the police then? Amara asked. Why did she let him keep doing it? Lois leaned forward and took Amara's hand. Because of you, honey. She sat right there in that chair and cried. She said, Lois, if I turn him in, he has the paperwork set up to frame Amara. He will destroy her to save himself. She spent her last years trying to gather enough proof to exonerate you before she pulled the trigger. But the cancer, it moved faster than she expected. Amara started to cry silently. Grandma had died protecting her. But here is the problem, Lois said, her voice turning serious. You two are playing a dangerous game, blackmailing him for a confession. If you mess this up, he walks. Or worse, he hurts you. You need professional help. We can't go to the regular police, I said. They might arrest Amara. I know, Lois said. That's why I have a specific contact. When your grandmother was digging, we reached out to a man named Agent Reyes. He works for the FBI. He specializes in elder financial exploitation. We never officially brought him in because Gertrude died, but he knows the background. Lois picked up her landline phone. She dialed a number from a small address book. Agent Reyes, she said. It's Lois Cole. Gertrude's granddaughters are here. They found the box. And they have a meeting with Carl tonight. You need to get over here. An hour later, a man in a gray suit sat in Lois's living room. Agent Reyes was not like the cops on TV. He was quiet, calm, and very intense. He didn't yell. He just looked at the evidence I had on my laptop. He scrolled for 10 minutes without saying a word. Then he looked at Amara. Miss Burke, he said, I'm going to be honest with you. This is the most sophisticated setup I have ever seen. Your father has created a perfect paper trail. If we went to a judge right now with just these documents, you would be the primary suspect. Amara went white. So I'm going to jail? No, Reyes said. Not if we get him to admit that he created the trail. We need intent. We need him to say out loud that he is the one pulling the strings. We called him, I said. He's coming to my house at 8 p.m. to pay us off. Reyes shook his head. No, that's uncontrolled. It's in a residential neighborhood. If things go wrong, civilians could get hurt, and a payment isn't enough. A good lawyer could argue he was just paying his daughters a gift to stop family drama. We need a specific confession. We need him to admit to the fraud. So what do we do? I asked. Change the venue, Reyes said. Move the meeting, make it somewhere isolated, somewhere he feels comfortable, somewhere he feels like the king. The A-frame, I said. Grandma's house, it's empty, it's on the mountain. Perfect, Reyes said. Call him back. Tell him you need time to get the drive. Tell him to meet you at the A-frame tomorrow morning. That gives us time to wire the house. My heart was pounding. This was real. We weren't just sisters fighting a bad dad anymore. We were part of a federal operation. I picked up my phone. I dialed Dad. Change of plans, I said when he answered. Don't play games with me, Olivia, he growled. No games, I said, but the files are at the mountain house. In the safe, we can't get them until tomorrow morning. Meet us there at 10 a.m., it's more private anyway. He hesitated. Fine, 10 a.m., don't be late. I hung up. Reyes looked at us. Okay, he said. Tonight we work. Tomorrow we catch him. The night before the meeting was the longest night of my life. I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, playing out every possible scenario in my head. What if he saw the cameras? What if he brought a gun? What if he just denied everything? Amara slept in my guest room, but I heard her pacing the floor until 3 a.m. We were both terrified. We were about to betray our father. Even though he was a monster, the bond of blood is a hard thing to break. It felt unnatural. But then I would think about Mrs. Whittaker, unable to pay for her grandson's college, and my resolve would harden like steel. At 6 a.m., we met Agent Reyes and his team at the bottom of the mountain. They were driving unmarked vans. They looked like a landscaping crew. We drove up to the A-frame house. The morning mist was still clinging to the trees. The house looked peaceful, sitting there in the woods. It was hard to believe it was about to become a crime scene. Okay, Reyes said. Listen carefully. North Carolina is a one-party consent state. That means as long as you, the participants in the conversation, consent to the recording, it is legal. You are the consenters, we are just the listeners. He handed me a small device. Put this in your pocket. It's a backup audio recorder. But don't worry about it too much. We are going to put cameras and microphones in the living room. I watched as the agents worked. They were fast and silent. They placed a tiny microphone inside the vase on the mantelpiece. They hid a camera behind the books on the shelf. They put another microphone under the coffee table. Where will you be? I asked. We will be in the van, parked down the logging road about a half-mile away, Reyes said. We will be listening live. If he gets violent, we come in. If he confesses, we come in. If he tries to leave with the evidence, we come in. What do we have to do? Amara asked. Her voice was shaking, but she stood tall. You have to get him to talk, Reyes said. Don't just let him hand you a check. Make him explain why he did it. Play dumb. Ask questions. Say things like, but Dad, why did you use my name? Or how did you sign the papers? Make him brag. Narcissists love to brag. By 9:30 a.m., the agents were gone. The house was silent. Amara and I sat on the old plaid couch in the living room, the same couch we used to build forts on when we were kids. Are you ready? I asked her. No, she said, but I'm going to do it. I have the laptop, I said. I'm going to play Grandma's audio files first. That will make him angry. Anger makes him sloppy. We heard the crunch of gravel outside. A car door slammed. I looked out the window. The black SUV was there. Dad was walking up the path. He wasn't alone. My stomach dropped. Mom is with him, I said. What? Amara ran to the window. Why did he bring Mom? Human shield, I said. Or maybe he thinks she can guilt us into backing down. Does this change anything? Amara asked. No, I said. It just makes it sadder. The front door opened. Dad walked in like he owned the place. He was wearing a sharp suit, not a hair out of place. Mom walked in behind him. She looked nervous, clutching her purse with both hands. Let's get this over with, Dad said. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask how we were. He just looked at us with pure contempt. Where is the drive? Sit down, Dad, I said. We need to talk first. I'm not here to talk, he snapped. I brought the money. Well, a cashier's check, it's easier. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and tossed it onto the coffee table. $2 million. That's a lot of money for two girls who have never accomplished anything. The insult stung, but I let it slide. I needed him to talk. It's not just about the money, I said. We listened to the tapes, Dad. We know you threatened Grandma. Grandma was confused, Mom piped up. Her voice was shrill. She was on medication, girls. You can't take those tapes seriously. I looked at my mother. Mom, did you know he was using Amara's name to steal? Mom looked away. She couldn't meet my eyes. That was my answer, she knew. Or she suspected, and she chose to look the other way because she liked her new car and her country club luncheons. It doesn't matter what she knew, Dad said. What matters is that you two are trying to ruin this family over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, Amara spoke up. Her voice was quiet but steady. You forged my signature, Dad. You opened shell companies. You ruined my credit. I couldn't get a loan for 5 years. I lived in poverty because of you. Dad laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. You lived in poverty because you have no ambition, Amara, he said. I was doing you a favor. I was building a nest egg. You should be thanking me. Thanking you for framing me, Amara asked. For giving you a purpose, Dad shouted. Who cares if your name was on a few papers? You weren't using your credit anyway. I glanced at the flower vase. The microphone was listening. But Dad, I said, leaning forward. How did you do it? The bank requires ID. How did you open accounts in her name without her being there? Dad smirked. He couldn't resist showing off. It's easy when you know the bankers, he said. And it's easy when you have your daughter's birth certificate and social security card in your safe. I told them Amara was sick. I told them she was homebound. I signed for her. I verified for her. I built a whole persona. And the victims? I asked. Mrs. Whittaker, Lois Cole. They trusted you. They are old, Dad said, dismissing them with a wave of his hand. They don't even know what they have. They have millions sitting in accounts doing nothing. I put that money to work. I invested it. I spent it. I lived. They didn't miss it. So you admit it, I said. You stole the money, and you pinned it on Amara so if the cops came she would go to jail. Dad looked at me. He stood up and buttoned his jacket. He looked powerful. He looked untouchable. I admit that I am the smartest man in this room, he said. And I admit that if you don't give me that drive, I will bury you both in legal fees until you are homeless. Amara will go to prison because I can prove those signatures are hers. I have handwriting experts on my payroll. I have judges on my golf team. Who are they going to believe, me or the waitress? He smiled. A cruel, winning smile. Now, he said, give me the drive. I stood up. I walked over to the window. I looked out at the trees. I can't do that, Dad, I said. What? His face darkened. I can't give you the drive, I said. Because the FBI is listening to this conversation. For a second, there was total silence. Dad looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. He blinked. What did you say? He asked. I said the FBI is listening, I repeated. Right now. Dad's face turned a color I had never seen before. It went purple, then gray. He looked around the room wildly. You're lying, he hissed. You're a liar, you wouldn't dare. She's not lying, Carl, Mom whispered. She was looking out the window. Oh my God, Carl, look. Dad spun around to the window. 2 black vans were tearing up the driveway. Gravel was flying. Men in tactical vests were jumping out before the vans even stopped moving. No, Dad said. No, no, no. He backed away from the window. He looked at us. The mask of the confident businessman fell off. Underneath, he was just a scared, cornered rat. You little witch, he screamed at me. He lunged across the coffee table. You set me up. FBI, open UP. The voice boomed from the front porch. The door didn't even have time to open. A battering ram hit it. Crack, the wood splintered. The door flew open. Agent Reyes was the first one in. He had his gun drawn, pointed at the floor. Carl Burke, he shouted. Hands where I can see them. Now, 6 agents flooded the room. The tiny A-frame felt suddenly very crowded. Dad froze. He looked at the agents, then at the check on the table, then at us. This is a mistake, he yelled. These are my daughters. We are having a family dispute. Hands behind your back, Reyes barked. He grabbed Dad's arm and spun him around. I watched as my father, the man who had terrified us for years, the man who controlled every penny and every emotion in our house, was slammed against the wall. The handcuffs clicked. Click, click. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. You have the right to remain silent, Reyes recited. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Dad was struggling. Sarah, call the lawyer, call Henderson, tell him to fix this. Mom was sitting on the couch, sobbing. She didn't move, she didn't reach for her phone, she just cried. Sarah, Dad screamed. Agent Reyes hauled him toward the door. As he passed Amara, Dad stopped struggling for a second. He looked at her. His eyes were full of hate. You're nothing, he spat at her. You're ungrateful trash. Amara stood up. She looked him right in the eye. She didn't flinch. I'm the witness, she said calmly. And I'm the victim. And I'm the one who just took you down. Dad was dragged out the door. We heard him shouting all the way to the van. Then, the heavy door of the van slammed shut, cutting off his voice. The silence that followed was heavy. Agent Reyes walked back in. He holstered his gun. He looked at the cashier's check on the table. $2 million, he said. Attempted bribery. That's another 10 years right there. Good work, ladies. He picked up the check and put it in an evidence bag. Is it over? Amara asked. Her legs gave out and she sat down hard on the couch. The hard part is over, Reyes said. Now comes the paperwork. But we have him, we have the confession on tape, we have the files, we have the bribery check, he's not wriggling out of this. I looked at Mom. She was still crying, her face buried in her hands. Mom, I said. She looked up. Her mascara was running down her face. She looked old. How could you? She sobbed. He's your father, you destroyed our lives. I felt a flash of anger, but then just pity. He destroyed our lives, Mom, I said. He stole from old people, he stole from his own mother, he framed your daughter and you let him. I didn't know it was that bad, she stammered. I thought he was just borrowing. You knew, Amara said softly. You just didn't want to lose the house. Mom didn't answer. She just wept. I walked over to Amara and put my arm around her. We stood in the center of the room, surrounded by FBI agents and recording equipment. The house that Grandma had loved, the house where we had spent our summers, was finally clean. The secrets were out of the walls. Let's go, I said to Amara. Let's get out of here. The next few months were a blur of lawyers, courtrooms, and depositions. It was exhausting, but it was also liberating. For the first time, we weren't hiding anything. We were telling the truth, and people were believing us. Dad tried to fight it at first. He hired expensive lawyers. He tried to get the recording thrown out. He tried to claim entrapment. But the evidence was overwhelming. The cloud files Grandma saved were meticulous. The testimony from Mrs. Whitaker and Lois Cole was heartbreaking. And the video of him in the A-frame, bragging about how he tricked the banks and calling his victims old and useless, played on the news every night. The public hated him. He became the face of greed. Eventually, his lawyers told him to take a plea deal. If he went to trial, he was looking at 40 years. He pleaded guilty to wire fraud, identity theft, elder abuse, and obstruction of justice. The sentencing hearing was on a Tuesday. Amara and I sat in the front row. Mom wasn't there. She had moved to a small condo in Florida to get away from the shame. She still sent us letters saying we should forgive him, but we didn't answer them. The judge was a stern woman who didn't tolerate nonsense. She looked at Dad, who was wearing an orange jumpsuit now. He looked smaller. Without his suits and his expensive haircuts, he just looked like a tired, angry old man. Mr. Burke, the judge said, you preyed on the most vulnerable members of our society. You betrayed the trust of your clients. But worst of all, you cannibalized your own child. You sacrificed your daughter's future to feed your own greed. That is a level of moral bankruptcy that I rarely see. She shuffled her papers. I sentence you to 22 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for at least 18 years. The gavel banged. It was the loudest, best sound I had ever heard. Dad didn't look at us as he was led away. He just stared straight ahead. He was gone. After the sentencing, Amara and I walked out of the courthouse. The sun was shining. It felt different. The air felt lighter. It's over, Amara said. She took a deep breath. He can't hurt us anymore. He's gone, I said. We went to dinner that night, just the two of us. We went to a nice restaurant, not to celebrate him going to jail, but to celebrate us surviving him. So, I said, raising my glass. What now? Amara smiled. It was a real smile, the first real smile I had seen on her face in a decade. Now, she said, I get my name back. It took a year to untangle the mess Dad had made. With the help of Agent Reyes and a team of forensic accountants, we cleared Amara's name. Every fraudulent loan, every fake credit card, every shell company, it was all expunged from her record. The banks issued formal apology letters. The credit bureaus reset her score. It was like magic. For 10 years, she had been drowning. Now she could breathe. The government seized Dad's assets. They sold his house, his cars, his investments. The money went into a restitution fund for the victims. Mrs. Whitaker got her money back. Her grandson went to college. Lois Cole got her savings back. It wasn't everything. Some of the money was gone forever, but it was enough to make things right. We sold the A-frame house. It was hard to let it go, but there were too many ghosts there. Too many bad memories of the day the FBI kicked down the door. We split the money from the sale. 50-50. Clean money, Amara said when the check cleared. Honest money. Amara used her share to go back to school. She finished her degree. She got a job at a nonprofit that helps elderly victims of fraud. She was good at it. She was passionate. She knew exactly what to look for. I stayed in Charlotte, but I visited her often. One afternoon, about 2 years after the arrest, we were sitting on the porch of Amara's new house. It was a small place, but it was hers. She had bought it with her own credit, her own name, and her own money. She was reading a book. I was drinking iced tea. You know, she said, looking up. I used to hate my name. Every time I saw it on an envelope, I got scared. I thought it meant bad news. And now, I asked. Now, she said, I like it, it's mine again. She put the book down. Grandma knew, she said. She knew we would be okay if we just had the truth. She saved us, I said. Even from the grave. We never visited Dad in prison. We never wrote to him. He was a chapter of our book that was finished. We tore the pages out and burned them. I looked at my sister. She looked healthy. Her eyes were bright. She was happy. We had lost our parents. Mom was distant, living in her denial in Florida. Dad was in a cell. We were orphans, in a way. But as I looked at Amara, I realized we weren't alone. We had each other. We had gone through the fire and come out the other side. We were forged in that fire. Grandma's last lesson wasn't about money. It wasn't even about justice. It was about loyalty. She taught us that blood doesn't make you family. Love makes you family. Protection makes you family. And standing there on that porch, watching the sun go down, I knew that was the only inheritance we ever really needed. Like and subscribe, drop a comment, where are you watching from?